Welcome to Octaves and Unisons with Gene Petty. As you see, there's a picture of an octave and a unison right next to each other. Every note you see here is an E. The octave is 8 steps apart from each other. The way you find that out is you count the line, no more 1, the space, a 2, the next line up, 3, 4, 5, 6, till you come to 8. And the octave is abbreviated 8VA. The 2 E's on the left are a distance of 1 octave. The unison, which is on the right, is abbreviated P1. That stands for perfect unison. A unison, whether played at the same time or in sequence, is always the same pitch note. The guitar is tuned with a low E string. Let me get my guitar here. I want you to get your guitars out too. Play the low E string. There you go. And the high E string. Let's hope they're fairly in tune. And this is a span of what you would call 2 octaves. The zeros on top could mean 0 fret or open string. Now the 2 open strings are played at the same time. They're represented by these 2 notes, the high E string and low E string. Sound like that, and they're written like that, as you see on the staff. The low E has 3 ledger lines, and the note sits below the 3rd ledger line. That's the lowest note on the guitar. And the top E is on the top space. That's the highest open string on the guitar. Not the highest E, but the highest open string. Now I'm picking up some good vibrations here. Hope you're feeling the same. They share the same letter names, but they're not the same pitch. The low E vibrates at 82.41 Hertz, and the high E vibrates at 329.63 Hertz. Hertz is just cycles per second, how many times it vibrates in a matter of 1 second. The short lines below the staff are called ledger lines. They extend the staff, and as we described in the last frame, there's 3 ledger lines and the E sits below. Now look at the difference between the low string and the high string. Look at the difference in how they vibrate. The purple note is a note that vibrates in between those 2. That's vibrating at 164.81 Hertz, which is about halfway between the low E and the high E. The 2 circled below in the tab means you play that with your 2nd finger. So, get on your D string, the 4th string, and play the middle E. Now, if you can, try to play all 3 notes. You have to use your 3 fingers and 2 fingers and a thumb. 1, 2, 3. They're all E's. Okay, so here we have the 3 E's, all vibrating at different frequencies, ranging from low to higher. So why don't they have different names? Well, they do. We're not going to go into it much, but the lowest one is called E2. The middle one is E3, and the top one is E4. Now you can imagine there's an E1 that a bass guitar could play, but a guitar can't. There's also E5, which is higher up here, but then an E6 could be played by a flute or a piano, but you can't really get that on a guitar unless you go way up there on the string in the middle of the pickups or the hole. But the reason we're just telling you this is that it's needed to tell you that there's a broad spectrum of notes, and every instrument's limited to its own. For our purposes, we need to spot, hear, and identify pitches on the staff and transfer them to the guitar. I can't stress enough how important the listening is in this course. So listen to all the notes that we're talking about and play them on your guitar. By making use of the E in between the high and the low strings, we now have 2 octaves at hand. Okay, low string, and the high string is the 2 octaves. And that picture doesn't include the high E string, but it just includes the middle E. So you have the 1 octave here, and then we have the other octave, which is the first one in this diagram. Okay, now we're back to the low one. And then there's this higher octave. Way up here, we get to see that high E with the 3 ledger lines on top. It's sitting, it's not sitting, but the ledger line goes through it. And those 2 notes are played on the 14th and the 12th fret. So that may be a stretch for you to reach up there, but that's how those 2 notes sound on the right. All E's. Now, exercise 1. I'm going to ask you to play for the length of 1 minute. Pluck the lowest string and the highest string at the same time, like we've been doing. But we're going to listen to it carefully, okay? Listen to it carefully. Here we go. I'm going to put the guitar right up to the mic. Listen to it fade. Do that for about a minute on your own when you get a chance, when you're reviewing these videos, and memorize that sound so that if you wake up in the middle of the night, you know that sound. And something you should never forget, the sound of the low E, the low E and the high E. Together, that's a span of 2 octaves there. Now, place your finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, and you make the middle E. Pluck the low string along with it. It's a lower note. 2 lower notes. That's 2 notes right there. They're both called E. Now pluck the same 2nd note with the high E string. Listen to that. It's a different sound than down here, and yet they're very similar. Memorize that slight difference between this and this. Spend some time hitting the lower octave and then the higher octave. Alright, that was pretty easy, but don't be afraid to take some time in doing that. Now we're going to look at unisons quickly. Remember that the guitar is structured in such a way that you can play the same note 2 different ways simultaneously. Remember that's how we tune a guitar. I want to tune the top E string. I go to the B string on the 5th fret, and the open string sounds the same, hopefully. If not, you tune it with your tuning pegs. And now we hit them at the same time. Always a little slight bit out of tune. Okay? But now this E can be played 3 other ways. Here's the open one. Now the 5th fret we've done. Let's go up to the 7th, 8th, 9th fret on the next string over, on the G string. Look at that, on the 9th fret of the G string. I'm buzzing a little bit. Okay. That's the same note as the open string. Again, it'll sound more out of tune and with a different tone because it's a thicker string. Now jump up to the 14th fret, if you can reach it, on the D string. And that sounds a lot different, but still the same note. And there you have it. 4 different ways to play the same note. This is partially one reason why guitar players tend not to want to read too much. Because when you have so many options like this, it could become confusing. Hopefully by the end of this course, you'll have a better idea of how to read notes and where to play them. Most of the time, we'll be staying below the 5th fret. Okay, we're not going to jump all over the top of the neck of the guitar. That's more advanced study. Now, exercise 2 for 2 minutes. Learn to find and play every E that is the same pitch as the high E string. While you're playing these E's, look at the staff and see that they are all the same written note. Assume your guitar is in tune. So, here's your exercise. We'll do this for 2 minutes. Fifth fret, 9th fret, 14th fret. And if you're really venturous on the A string, I'm not going to tell you what that fret is because I can't count that high. Okay, just kidding with you folks. Now, let's look at the octave A. There's your open A string. And now we'll jump over to the string after that, and then the one after that on the G string and the 2nd fret. This is the A octave. All right, get that in your head. Here's how these 2 A's appear on the staff, and here's how they sound. Play along. Put your finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. There's a little tab there. There's a graph. You can't miss any of this, folks. There you go. The A octave. Get that in your head. The lower A is played on the open string. The higher A is played on the 2nd fret of the G string. And now, there are 2 ways to do the higher A. You're going to have to stretch your pinky this time. See the diagram on the left. There's that A. That's the middle A. And now the higher A. Stretch it with your pinky. See if you can play them both at the same time. Actually, I have the pictures reversed there. This is the 2nd of the 2 octaves on the tabs there. The number 2 fret and the number 5 fret. So now, the other way is to go to the D string on the 5th fret, 7th fret, excuse me, and put your first finger on the 5th fret of the 1st string. You get the same octave. 2 ways to play the A octave. Listen to it carefully, because now you're going to do that for 1 minute. Play the lower A octave. Let's do that again. All right, and now for the next minute, you're going to play the 2 upper octaves. Okay? So there you go. Here's the reading it now. Lower octave, read the notes. Do this for a whole minute. Sit there and look at those notes and tell yourself, that's an A octave. Listen to how it sounds. And for another minute, trade off and play these 2 octaves. A. A. Switching back and forth. And looking at those notes. Get these notes embedded in your head, the A octave. And now we go to the unison on A. Well, let's pretend we're tuning our guitar. And we got the E in tune. Now we go to the 5th fret on the E string. What do? Okay, you want to tune your A string to that. Well, mine's pretty much there. Always slightly a little out. Now we're going to play them at the same time. 2 A's of the same pitch. And listen carefully. The 5th fret of the E string and the open A string. There you go. Moving on. Octaves on D. There's 2 ways to play the D octave. And we're going to show you the graphs here. On the one on the left gives you where you usually tune on the 5th fret, and the first finger on the 3rd fret B string. There's your first octave on D. Can easily be done with the open string on the right. That's the open string, and here's again with the 5th fret. And there's your D octaves. Let's just go to a D octave exercise. Alternate between the 2 ways to play the D octave for 2 minutes. Alright, so you're going to take this, your 5th fret first, and your first finger on the 3rd fret. Switch to the open string. Keep your first finger on the D, 3rd fret. Look at those notes. D's. First measure D's, second measure D's. Same notes, different frets. Alright. Now the unison on D. It's like we're tuning the guitar again. 5th fret. Same note, same pitch, 2 different strings. Try them both at the same time. And you're probably familiar with the D unison already because you've tried to tune the guitar. So this isn't probably too much news to you here, but you are learning what the interval of a unison is and the difference between that and an octave. So for 2 minutes, look, listen, play a D unison separately and at the same time. Moving on to octaves on G. Look at those octaves. G could be played as E was, with a span of 2 octaves. The first example shows 3 G's in the first measure. You got your low one, 3rd fret on the E string. You got the open string G, and then the high, 3rd fret. Here's the span between the lowest and highest. And here's all 3 together. Here's the lowest octave, 2 lower G's, or the lower G and the middle G, and now the middle G and the upper G. That's the 3rd measure there. And that can be done 2 different ways. Get your finger on the 5th fret of the D string, and first finger on the 3rd fret of the E string. And there you have it. Here they are. Here's the graphs. Do them one more time. The one in the left corner, upper left corner. Hit them separately and at the same time. The one on the upper right corner. The lower left. And the lower right. Now let's go to the B string, or the octaves on the B. We have a 2nd fret on the A string, and then the open B string creates a B octave. The lower B in the octave is on the 2nd fret of the A string. And the way it's written is that it sits below that first ledger line below the staff. Another tuning position will give us a B unison. Okay, that you've probably done. Tuned your B string, your G string with the B string. So it's a little sharp here. I'm turning my G string down a little. Okay, there's your unison B. And you're going to play for exercise 7, play and read the B octave, okay? Now for 1 minute, play the B unison. Alright, moving on to exercise 8. We're going to combine all these octaves in one exercise. So for 1 minute, play, read, listen to the octaves on E, A, D, G, and B. So look at the E, the low E, and read it while you're playing it. Then the next one. Listen to it. Do it again if you need to. And now here's A. Get that stretch with the pinky on the 5th fret up there. A octave, read the notes. Hold them out. And now we're going to continue this with the D. The tab says 5-3. So you got your 5th fret on the A string. And the first finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. Now I put a rest there, even though I could have just as well put the 2 notes there. They're the same notes, so I just thought I'd show you what a rest looks like. A whole note rest. And now during that rest you're going to actually play, so it's not really a rest. And we have open string. And don't even bother moving your 3rd fret finger, which is your 1st finger there. Now back over to the G lower octave and the higher octave. Listen to them all carefully and see how they differ. Alright, and don't forget the B. Let's just play the B octave. Do that for a minute. You can play them separately. Play at the same time. The way it's written here is that they're played at the same time. But we're not being very strict with that right now. Alright, unisons on A. Here we go. On D. You're tuning your guitar. G. B. Go to the 4th fret. Still not in tune there for me. And then the E. I'm playing a little sharp. It may not jive with your guitar at home, but these were the basic octave exercises I had set up for you in this video, and this is what we are doing. We are looking at the intervals that occur naturally on the guitar. We're playing them and reading them. Again, listen very carefully to the difference of these sounds, because now we're going to move on to different types of intervals, and they're going to sound different, and you have to be able to pick up the distinguishing characteristics of each interval. So I'll catch you in the next one, and hope you enjoyed this. This is Gene Petty. Take care.